All right, today we're cracking the code on a job title that's way more interesting than it sounds. The Amazon Research Analyst. This role is a fascinating mix. It's part data detective, part storyteller, and surprisingly, part on-the-ground warehouse leader. So let's jump in.
You've probably heard this a million times. Amazon's grand mission is to be Earth's most customer-centric company. It's a huge, bold statement, right? It's the engine behind one of the biggest operations on the planet.
But think about it. That's a massive promise to keep. When you click that Buy Now button, this incredibly complex machine kicks into gear, and it has to run almost perfectly every single time. And that's exactly where the research analyst steps in. They're the ones guarding that process. So the first hat this person wears, it's the data detective. And I mean that literally. They're not just looking at spreadsheets. They are on the hunt for clues and hidden stories buried in the numbers. And let's be real, Amazon is famous for being highly obsessive about metrics. In a culture like that, this isn't just some back office job. The data detective is where the rubber meets the road, where a tiny error in the data can have a huge ripple effect. So what are they looking for in all this data? They're hunting down something called quality defects. Now, that's just Amazon's term for anything that can go wrong. A misplaced item, a system glitch, you name it. And every single one of those defects could potentially mess with your order. Their investigation follows a pretty clear three-step process. First, they go data mining, digging up information from every corner of the operation. Next, they have to pinpoint the defects, the little anomalies that just don't add up. And finally, and this is the most important part, they find the root cause. They don't just figure out what happened, but why it happened. Okay, so finding the problem is one thing, but that's only half the battle. Now they have to put on a totally different hat, the storyteller. Because, raw data is just a bunch of numbers. It's meaningless without context. The analyst's real job is to turn that data into a story that people can actually understand and, more importantly, act on. They don't just say, bin 27 has a 5% error rate. They say, hey, we're seeing a lot of damaged items in bin 27, and it seems to be happening on the morning shift. Let's go figure out what's going on. And this is where that translation really comes to life. They take these technical, kind of cryptic report codes and make them make sense. So IRDR becomes, guys, we're having a tough time keeping track of our inventory. Unmatched X becomes, we've got items in the system that we can't find on the shelves. They're like the universal translator between the data and the people who can fix the problems. So we've got a data detective and a storyteller. But there's one more hat they wear. And honestly, this is the one that really sets this role apart. They're also the guardian of the floor. I really want you to get the picture out of your head of someone just sitting behind a computer all day. No way. This is absolutely not a desk job. The research analyst is right there, out on the floor, in the middle of all the action with the noise of conveyor belts and the constant hustle of a massive warehouse. And they're not just watching from the sidelines. They are in it. They're managing inventory, they're running daily trainings, leading team huddles, and giving direct feedback to associates. They even stand in for managers when they need to. Make no mistake, this is a leadership role, through and through. So what kind of person can actually pull all this off? Being a detective, a storyteller, and a floor leader all at once. Let's take a quick look at the kind of toolkit you need for this job. So the basic qualifications are pretty much what you'd expect. A degree, English fluency, Microsoft Office skills. But the preferred qualifications, that's where it gets interesting. They're looking for someone with experience in a manufacturing or a customer-facing environment. And that makes perfect sense, right? They need someone who gets the real-world pressures of a warehouse floor and never loses sight of the customer. So when you put all these pieces together, the detective, the storyteller, the guardian, you start to see that this research analyst role is so much more than just a numbers job. They really are the human bridge connecting the abstract world of data to the very real experience a customer has when they open that Amazon box. They're the ones who make sure that customer-centric promise is more than just a cool slogan, it's an actual reality. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? For a company as massive and history-making as Amazon, is